Good morning, everybody. So today we are going to organize one event from quarter four of IIC GIST unit. As we all know, engagement of our institutions, some events as per the declared event list by the Government of India, IIC Institutions Innovations Council. So today we are going to organize the first event of quarter four, that is Bootcamp Startup Planning and Development. And we are here is going to show you the explanation and the way of how to initiate the startup planning and how to develop the business proposals and processes. So by Mr. Jacob Poulose, which was fairly given by the IIC in the as a sample source material. So this source material, as you've gone through and found that it will be very effective for the students and the faculties as well, who will be attending this session. So now I would like to request our convener, Mr. Gauri Shankar Pal, to start the sessions of Mr. Jacob Paulos, and we'll get back to you after the session is over with the question answers.
Aspects that our country has been facing today, be it the societal, the economical, or the environmental challenges. And the thesis with which Social Alpha functions today is that we want to empower entrepreneurs to actually address the problems that our society has been facing. And in that endeavor, over the past 5 years of our existence, we have supported close to 130 startups and invested in 60 odd of them. And we work across multiple sectors, which is agri-tech, med-tech, clean tech, civic tech, consumer tech, ed tech, assistive tech. And we look at different lenses, which is we look at the sustainability lens, the prosperity lens, the wellness, and the equity lens. A quick look at our numbers. So as of today, we have looked at around 6,000 ideas. We have evaluated 800 startups. We have incubated more than 130 of them. We have invested in 69 of them. 18 of them have acquired follow-on capital. 60 of them have won awards within our portfolio. Our total committed capital is today 716 million. Our follow-on capital that is raised by our invested companies is at 1,032 million rupees, and we have had 3 exits from our investments. So coming back to the topic that has been given to me today is to give you a brief on the incubation and the acceleration ecosystem in the country. So I want to take the session a bit different. So rather than telling you which are the incubators and the kind of schemes that they have, because they are innumerable. We have close to 150 incubators, and we have got accelerators run by government organizations. We have got accelerators run by corporate organizations, by incubators, etc. So the idea behind having this session today is, can I impart enough knowledge or understanding about the concepts of what an incubator does, what an accelerator does, what are the services that an incubator can actually offer, so that all of you can take an informed decision on your journey forward on when you decide that, hey, we need to approach an incubator for the kind of support that we need, or we need to be part of an accelerator because of the objectives that the accelerator has, etc. So that will be the primary objective. So the expectation that I have is, at the end of the session, the takeaway for all of you would be that you would be able to understand which are the right set of incubators that you need to approach, or the kind of the way that you can evaluate how an incubator can be of value to you, etc. So yeah, so let's get into the meat of the matter. So if you primarily look at, for any startup within our country, they primarily look at 2 schemes or 2 programs, right? They either want to be part of an incubator or they want to be part of an accelerator. But the boundaries between an incubator and accelerator is like, it's like a boundary or a line drawn on water. Now the idea is that, can you clearly differentiate what an incubator or an accelerator is? I have taken an attempt here. So I kind of like try to classify it under multiple heads. What is the purpose of an incubator and accelerator, and what are the maturity stage of each startup, etc. So if you look at it, an incubator is primarily wherein you want to create a startup, or you are at a very early stage, you have an idea, you want to convert that idea into a product, or you want to move that product from a lab to the market, etc. That's where you actually should approach an incubator and tell them that, hey, see, this is what I'm working on, and I would like your support for XYZ to actually get it done. At the same time, what is an accelerator? Now, accelerator is wherein you actually come in when you are at a stage where you want to scale from, say, a stage X to a stage Y. Or so usually it happens when you have a minimum viable product, and you want to build business traction around that. So an accelerator will be a much shorter span, which comes in with a specific time period, and the accelerator will have a specific objective to move towards, or a specific objective for the startup to achieve at the end of the accelerator. So it is kind of like you have a predefined scenario, or a predefined period within which an acceleration happens, and then your startup goes through the acceleration program, and at the end of it, there are specific KPIs that you would want to achieve and you are able to achieve at the end of the accelerator. Then when you look at the maturity wherein you have to achieve, or the stage of the startup when you actually approach a startup and an accelerator, or an incubator or an accelerator, primarily you approach an incubator when you are at a customer discovery stage, or when you're still in your business planning stage, or you are at a prototype product development stage, or you have to establish a product market fit, or you have to build an MVP. But at the same time, when you go into an accelerator, you already have all of this. You have to look at what your pilots are, where are you going to implement your pilot. Can you get some product validations? Can you work with your go-to-market strategies? Can you understand better the regulatory pathways? Can you build business traction as an output of the accelerator program? And then comes the kind of preference that incubators versus an accelerator have. So normally incubators tend to be very generic. So if you look at the incubation landscape in our country, I'll take an example of ourselves. So we also have an incubator, and we are sector agnostic today. So we work in multiple sectors. So like I mentioned earlier, we work close to in 7 to 8 sectors. And we have a very generic focus on the science and technology area that we, or deep science and tech focus that we have. But at the same time, each accelerator, so within Social Alpha, we run multiple accelerators. And the same is the case with all the corporate organizations. So for example, if you take the larger corporates within our country, Cisco runs an accelerator, Microsoft runs an accelerator, Google runs an accelerator. So all of them is working on a specific outcome. So when Cisco ran an accelerator this year, it was focused on agriculture. So Microsoft launched an agriculture which was focused on, they launched an accelerator which was focused on AI and ML. Google launched an accelerator which was app focused. So again, there is a specific focus that each accelerator has. So it becomes important when you are preparing an application for the incubator and accelerator to understand what are the synergies with the focus area that they have, and whether there is a fit or a mandate fit with what you are going to achieve, or what the mandate your startup has, or what your entrepreneur or the idea that you have. Because otherwise it will not be, it will be a waste of time for both you as well as the accelerator program. So it is better you understand where you are applying to and try to understand the mandate fit, and then decide between what you need, whether it's an incubator support or whether it's an accelerator support. And similarly, if you look at it, most of the accelerators tend to be very virtual, wherein you have only like a week's program wherein all of them come together and kind of like have a session where all of them discuss the ideas, and then there is a boot camp sort of thing. But at the same time, incubators could be more of innovation based. So there could be a lab where you could sit and work, or there could be a co-working space that you could actually work during the time of the incubation. You could have your team placed there, and they could actually provide you a physical working space. It could be a lab, it could be a co-working space, or it could be anything else where you can actually sit and work. That also percolates down into the design principle that they actually take. So when an incubator designs a program, or the entire incubation program will be on need basis of each startup that comes to them, because they will have a session wherein they evaluate your needs, and then they kind of like create a customized program. But at the same time, accelerator will be a cohort-based program, wherein they will have an existing, I would say something like a period. They will have an existing timetable through which you go, and they will have a schedule, or they will have a program structure through which you go. And at the end of that, all of them are expected to go through that. So again, the idea is that within an incubator, you could be in multiple stages. So there could be 10 startups within an incubator. Each of them could be at different stages. But at the same time, when you come to the accelerator, all of them tend to be at the same stage, because that program is structured in such a way that they are looking at the same stage accelerator or the same sector focus accelerator. Similarly, you look at the time period of an incubator. It varies anything in the range of say 6 months to 3 to 5 years. So for us, we have startups who have been incubated with us for the past 5 years. Similarly, but at the same time, accelerators are going to be much shorter. So they could be anywhere in the range of say 2 months to 6 months. And sometimes you also see 12 months, which is like a 1-year accelerator program, but that would be much more extensive. And that's where these lines between an incubator and accelerator gets blurred. And then when you look at the entry mechanism, so typically an incubator will have a round robin or a very open entry mechanism wherein you apply to them. They evaluate you on the basis of your application, maybe on a one-on-one basis. And then they kind of like communicate to you on the decision whether to take the conversation forward or not. But at the same time, an accelerator will have a much more rigorous process wherein there will be an open call for applications. You will be applying against, say, 100 odd others. So there will be 500 odd applicants. All of them will be evaluated, say, by a different set of juries. They will have a very rigorous and comprehensive process by which the evaluation is done. And finally, it moves on to the acceleration, which is a much shorter. So just to give you some examples, so Clean Energy International Incubator is one of our incubators based out of Delhi. There is Startup Village in Cochin. There is Venture Center in Pune. There is CII based out of Ahmedabad. There is IIM Calcutta Innovation Park based out of Kolkata. And that these are all examples of incubators. These are just very few, as in we have close to 140 DST registered incubators in our country. I just try to give you some examples from each region. And like my earlier speaker also spoke, each of their respective government departments or the Chamber of Commerce, they also have incubators that they have supported. But at the same time, accelerators are much shorter, right? So they don't need so much of commitment from the people who are running. So it's much shorter period. It runs on a programmatic mode where annually you have accelerator programs. So quite a lot of times how we see is accelerator programs are more of a partnered program between, say, an incubator or say a government entity and a corporate entity. So for example, GSF Accelerator, Microsoft Accelerator, Cisco launched Accelerator. We have something called as a Social Alpha Health Innovation Exchange Accelerator, etc. So this is the kind of distinction that I wanted to bring to your understanding, so that it becomes easier for you to understand what is an incubator, what is an accelerator, and take a much more informed decision on where to apply for your needs. So especially when you're early stage, I at least believe that it is much more important for you to look at where you want to apply and then take an informed decision there. So most of the early stage accelerators tend to apply to an incubator, because accelerators tend to take a product or a startup from, say, a scale A to a scale B. Now, do you want, how do you want the questions to happen? Do you want to happen it immediately, or do you want to happen to?
No, the process is that you cover all the slides, all the content, and if you will cover everything by 12:45 or 12, sorry, by 12:35, then next 15 to 20 minutes we will take the questions.
Wonderful, wonderful, great. So what I'll do is I'll just give you an idea of what actually an incubator offers to you, so that again, like I mentioned, my entire objective with this session is so that it becomes much more clearer or understandable for you to see what are the kind of offerings that you get from an incubator and take an informed decision. So my earlier speaker, Yogesh, very rightly pointed out, see, most of the incubators, when they come out to support you, there is an equity component involved. Now, when you're giving out equity, you have to understand the value that they are creating, and you have to understand the value that you are giving out to them. So typically what we see within each incubator or acceleration program is that there is a horizontal component of support that they provide, and then there is a vertical component of support that they provide. So when you look at the horizontal component, you can categorize them as the infrastructure that they provide. So infrastructure support, like I mentioned earlier, is either labs or co-working spaces that is being offered to you. Then there are tech credits. So today we are blessed with a lot of corporates opening up tech credits of their products to the startups within our ecosystem. So typically what we have seen is incubators tend to have partnerships with a lot of these tech companies, through which they are able to offer these tech credits for free to a lot of startups that are enrolled with them. So for example, AWS credits are available, Google Cloud credits are available, Microsoft Azure credits are available, IBM Cloud credits are available. You have access to platforms like HubSpot, which helps in your marketing, digital marketing. You have access to core tools like MATLAB, which helps in modeling, simulation, etc. You have access to softwares like Canva, which helps in your design aspect. You have access to MathWorks, again, modeling, simulation. You have access to Soho, which are CRM tools. You have access to Freshdesk, again, CRM tools, etc. So it depends. This list is huge. As in, it is impossible for me to cover this within a 30 minutes or a 40-minute session. But all it is available in Google. You can just Google and find out what are the benefits that each of them offer. So all of them give you significant enough credits that can actually sustain an early stage startup for at least 6 months. So for example, AWS offers you anything in the range of 1,000 credits. In fact, Google, Microsoft, etc., increases their credits to almost to the tune of $100,000, which is significant. As in, you can actually run a startup with $100,000 worth of cloud credits. Similarly, each incubator will have their own sessions wherein they try to provide you access to workshops, mentor networks, industry experts, bootcamps, etc. So in the industry, we call this as the knowledge services. So you'll have to evaluate the kind of knowledge services that is on offer to you. And then the other important aspect is, see, for any startup, most of the times what happens is the founders or the entrepreneurs are invested in the idea. They are invested in the product to the extent that they forget about the other aspects of the, they forget about the other aspects of the startup. Now, what an incubator tries to do is they try to create this kind of cushion so that they can provide these services at a preferential rate to the startup, so that it becomes easier for an early stage startup to sustain its business and ensure that they are operating to the extent that is possible. For this, what they normally do is they tend to tie up with a lot of partners within the accounting space, taxation, legal, and IT and related services, HR services, financial services, banking and payment gateways, marketing, branding, and communication, etc. So typically, whatever is apart from the core service and that is needed for the sustenance of the operations of a startup, an incubator or an accelerator program generally tends to provide you those connects, or they generally tend to provide them as part of the incubation offering. Then comes a bit more into the product side. So a few of the incubators. So for example, we do a lot of software product advisory. So the startups that we have an in-house team that can actually consult with the existing startups and give them consultancy on with regards to the product review, architecture and design of your products, work with them on the product launch readiness, work with them on the infrastructure of the software that they have, team organization services, vendor selection, etc. And similarly, on the hardware side, a lot of incubators tend to have product development and CTO services. Again, the idea behind bringing this out is so that you have an understanding of what an incubator can offer you. And when you're evaluating incubators or accelerators to be part of, you should use all of these criteria to kind of like evaluate and ensure that you are selecting the right incubator or you are working with the right kind of an accelerator so that your cost is also further. Because like I mentioned, none of this comes free, right? So there is always a component that comes into play. Either there is a financial component that is involved or there is an equity component that is involved. So you have to ensure that there is maximum value for both the incubator that is helping you or the accelerator that you are part of, and at the same time for you also, because when you're parting away with, say, your capital or your equity, you have to ensure you are getting in return whatever you expect out of that program. So a lot of them help them with your product development and CTO services. And then there is a fund syndication and support for follow-on capital. So I'll come to the capital aspect a bit late, because there is something that I want to cover on the capital that each of the incubators bring to the table, and in generic also, because I believe that will help you in a lot. So fund syndication and support for follow-on capital is something that a lot of incubators put forward, but not all of the accelerators. So the accelerator being a specific monthly driven program, they might not be able to provide this kind of a support because this is a longer support, and this kind of like needs to be with the startup for a much longer time. So this is where they actually help you in preparing your pitches. They help you with your pre-seed capital. Some of the incubators have their own funds through which seed or pre-seed capital is available. They help you with your pitches. They help you understand your go-to-market strategy. They help you with your growth strategy. They help you prepare your pitch decks. They help work with you with an investor. They work as an operating partner or a co-founder. So for example, what we do is we basically work as an operating partner with them when a fundraise or a syndication needs to happen. So we help them with their compliance. We kind of like work really close with them on their compliance. Again, the other important aspect is when you see all of this, you shouldn't expect that everything is going to be done by the incubator for you. What they do is they only enable it for you. So the onus or the accountability still lies with you, but they give you the additional impetus that is needed to available on to ensure that you're able to achieve all of this, or to ensure that you are able to be compliant with all of this. So they help you with your business due diligence, etc. Moving on, the other is the vertical kind of support. So the reason why I wanted to distinguish between a horizontal and a vertical support is that vertical support tends to be very thematic focused, or it tends to be very focused to the sector that they are in. So for example, portfolio support is something that they provide. Typically what we see is when you are part of a incubator or when you are part of an accelerator, there is a portfolio manager that is assigned to you. Now say if you are a healthcare startup, or say you are an agri startup, or say you are an AI ML based startup, the portfolio manager who is working with you tends to be someone who knows or who understands the sector pretty well, because the idea of assigning a person or the idea of having a SPOC or a portfolio manager is that he can work as an operating partner with you. He can work as someone that you can consult on your day-to-day activities. He or she can work as someone that you can go to tell them that, hey, see, I have a problem in my organization. Can you actually help me solve it? So they work on multiple aspects. So they work with product consultation and market fit assessment. They help you with your go-to-market strategy. They act as sectoral health experts. They give you go-to-market health checkups. They help in performance improvements. When I say performance improvements, it's of the startup. It's not like a team performance improvement. It's of specific business scenarios that they have. They work with you on your vendor opportunities. They help with you on your strategy review meetings. They help with you in developing your businesses, because again, there is skin in the game for them, right? So for example, when an incubator has invested in you or has incubated you, they have skin in the game, right? So they are subscribed to the success of your startup also. So it becomes important for them to be part of the entire journey to ensure that you are also able to achieve the success that you have set out to achieve. So they could help you with business development. They could kind of like, again, all of this is consultative. So when I say this, don't expect them to be an employee and be a free riding resource for you. That will not be the case. All of this will be consultative. It will depend on how the interaction with you between you and the incubator or the accelerator happens, and how healthy the relationship is something that you can maintain. Because unless you are reciprocative, unless the founders and the startups are reciprocative, none of the incubators or accelerators will be able to provide you these kind of support. The other kind of support that we normally see is product validation. So again, access to sandbox, access to demo test beds, access to stakeholders who can actually provide expertise with the validation of the innovation, guidance for adoption, access to regulatory support for safety, especially in the healthcare space or anything that is involved with human adoption. You have a lot of regulations. So it could be the CDCSO, it could be the FDA regulations, there could be ISO regulations, there could be quality regulations. All of this is something that they can help you with. So again, the idea is the expectations of the incubator would have built expertise around this area, and they would be able to guide you on what is the kind of need that they need. And then they will always be able to open out the network for you. So they will have their own networks of incubators, accelerators, programs, partners that they have. They'll be able to open out to you. So you will get access to multiple resources in multiple areas. They can also open out access for grants and funds, which could be opportunities for paid pilots. It could be market access and scale-up funding opportunities, access to programmatic grants, etc. Now comes the other important aspect, which is the capital. Now, quite a lot of times what we have seen till now are the intangible offerings that a lot of incubators or accelerators offer to you. But then there is the capital offerings that a lot of incubators, accelerators bring. And before I actually go into the various stages of startup funding that an enterprise can get, I want to classify the various categories of streams of capital that you can get and give you some thoughts or leave you with some thoughts on the kind of capital that you should seek at this point of time. So for example, or if you look at it, the best stream of capital that a startup can ask for today is customer revenue. The reason why we say that it is non-dilutive. You are getting money for the product that you have, and it is totally non-dilutive, wherein you do not need to give equity, you do not need to give collateral, or there is it's a no hold bars revenue. So if your product is good, you're able to bring it to the market, then the customer revenue is the best source of revenue that you can generate. And what are the sources for this? It could be all kind of revenue models, right? It could be sales of goods, it could be a service fee, it could be licenses on your product, it could be a commission fee, it could be brokerage, it could be subscriptions, it could be referrals, etc. The second form of capital that is available to early stage startups or startups today is equity. Now, this is something that you have to be really wary of. Today, what you see is the tendency of founders is to give away equity for a very low price, or to give away equity for free. Now, this is something that I would advise against, because see, equity is the labor of your fruit, right? It is a part of your company. It is a chunk of your company that you are giving away. Now, you have to be really careful when you are giving this away. You have to understand the value that they are bringing in, and at the same time, you shouldn't have unrealistic expectation of valuations of your companies also. So today, what we've seen is, I've seen some companies coming to me and saying that, hey, we are looking at a valuation of close to 100 crores. What do they have? They have few lines of code, and they do not even have a paying customer today, and they expect us to have give them a 100 crore valuation. That is not going to happen. You have to understand what your product is. You have to build traction in the market before you actually approach someone for equity or an equity-based investment. And where can you get this? You can get this from angels. You can get this from incubators. You can get this from accelerators. You can get this from seed funds, VCs, private equities, etc. Then comes debt. Now, debt is also, it's like a two-sided sword, right? It's easy to get, but at the same time, you have to ensure that you have the predictable cash flow to carry debt, because unless you have a cash flow, you will not be able to repay the debt. Now, if you're not able to repay the debt, it is going to be on your books, and it is going to affect you significantly when you're going for a next fundraise or when you're going to a next prospective customer, etc. Where do you get debt from? It was very clearly captured in the earlier session and a few of the earlier sessions, but I'll just delve on that. So it could be from banks, it could be from NBFCs, it could be from venture debt funds, it could be from channel partners. A lot of government programs are available these days that offer you debt at a much lesser interest rate. Hello. Was that a question?
May take.
Okay.
I'll
go ahead.
Sorry.
So it could be from government bodies. No worries, Ethan. It could be from government bodies like SIDBI, Mudra, etc. Then comes the most attractive one, which is grants. So especially for an early stage company or an early stage startup, I would advise to apply for maximum grants as possible, because today you are in a stage where you're building your product, you're working on your minimum viable product, you're trying to see what is your market like. And there is nothing like grant that can help you. Grant is the best way that you can take it forward. Why? Because it's a one-way transaction, right? Grant comes into you. You will only have a few milestones to meet. You will only have few commitments with regards to your product, which is in furtherance of your objective itself. It's not something that you need to repay back. It's not an equity that you're paying for the grant that you get. So grant is the best source of capital that you can get, and it's not easy to get also. So you have a large number of grant schemes, but you are competing with all the startups in a country and even abroad for these grant programs. So grant is the best source of capital that you can get, but ensure that you use it wisely. So when you get a grant, ensure that you use it for your new product lines or your development of the existing product, or for projects that are at a very early stage, because these are something that you don't need to repay, or these are experiments that you can actually do without much of a risk. And where can you get grants from? So you can get grants from, say, BIRAC, a lot of government schemes. These could be from BSC, this could be from BIRAC, it could be from METI. There could be state government programs, there could be patent reimbursements that you get. You get CSR grants through accelerators from a lot of corporate organizations. You get social impact programs. There are awards and competitions, etc., that you can apply for, and you can get these grants. Now, while I've given you different sources of capital, it is important to understand how the various stages of startup funding also happen. So today you would see on the ecosystem, or you would see on social media, that XYZ company has raised pre-seed, XYZ company has raised seed capital, XYZ company has raised Series A, Series B, Series C, or they are going into an IPO exit. Now, at each point, the idea is that, see, when you're raising capital, it is not for additive cash flow. So each time when you're raising capital, a startup is basically raising capital to meet the deficits that the startup has. No one will pay you money for excess cash flow or just to put the money in the bank. When you're approaching a company, or when you're approaching a bank, or when you're approaching an investor or an incubator, asking them for grant or asking them for money, you need to have a specific project plan saying that where this money is going to be spent. You cannot say that, okay, give me a grant for 50 lakhs and then think what you're going to do with that. So when you're approaching a company, basically investment or capital comes in to meet your deficit and not to create a cash flow surplus. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. And that is how you break up your capital support that is available at different stages, right? So when you are pre-seed, when you are looking for pre-seed capital, you are primarily working on an idea or a prototype. You should look at fund sources, which is primarily a family of friends, or that comes from grant, or that comes from business plan competitions, or which are collateral-free debt. Then comes seed. Seed is a bit more advanced, where you actually have a product or a service which is launched in the market. So when you go in for seed capital, you are basically building your enterprise there. So you have a product, you have gone out to the market, you are building the enterprise, and it becomes easier for investors to evaluate. So you could have angel investors, you could approach angel investors, you could reach out for pitching competitions. Again, there are a lot of collateral-free grants and debt that is available at the seed stage. Then comes Series A and Series B and C. These are a bit more advanced. So this is where you have a product service gaining market traction, where you reach out to venture funds, or you reach out to bank loans to raise money, because it could be dilutive or non-dilutive capital, because there is strength of your product, or the strength of the idea, or the strength of the service, and that is what is enabling you to raise capital. Then comes Series BC, which is much significant later stage, wherein you're saying that, okay, this is for a new market, or you are rapidly acquiring new consumers, or you are rapidly acquiring new customers, and that is where you need money for expansion, and that is where you reach out to private equity firms, or you reach out to investment firms or venture funds for Series BC. And finally is your IPO or an exit, where you actually go out to the market, or you take your company public and list them out to kind of like raise capital. This happens at a much later stage, and this happens when you have reached traction, and when your product is at a much later stage. So these are the multiple stages of startup funding AUR. And the idea behind was to give you some understanding on what the various stages are, and the kind of approaches that you should take at each stage. So I'll kind of like wind up here we are already at 12:40, and I wanted to open it out to questions. So my idea was to kind of like give you a brief of what is available in the ecosystem, help you evaluate each incubator accelerator program that you're part of, understand the sources of capital that you have, and then kind of like open it out to questions, because I want to keep it a bit more interactive and make it as open as possible, so that I can try to answer as much questions as possible from you.
Thank you, Jacob. Actually, you just try to explain the whole process. See, now this student team or these student innovations and student startups, they have been gone through a phase of starting from ideation to prototype development to the business plan development, and they are now in the stage of seed and the pre-seed, that stage, right? So at this
Yes.
stage, I think that understanding the incubation landscape and also differentiating that what is acceleration, what is incubation, and where they should enter, what kind of services they will get from the incubation unit, and what is the avenues for exploring the opportunities for the seed and the pre-seed. And later stage, when they will just grow to the next stage, then they should explore about the investment opportunities from the bank or from the angel fund or from the VC fund. So all the things they have to explore. So that's why actually this session actually, I think, really helped these people to understand, to know that actually in which position, in which stage they are now in, so that it will be help them to set a timeline, also set a target or the growth stage, that how they will go step by step, so that they will reach to that stage, and next further planning. And I think next 15-20 minutes, I will request all my participants to either chat, either type their question in the chat box. Jacob, you can see the questions already mentioned in the chat box. So, and the other way of asking a question is that you can raise your hand in the participant panel, so that we will allow you to speak and you can ask the question. The both ways you can put your questions. So let me take a couple of questions is already mentioned in the chat box. So the question is on. Yes, somebody is asking about the, sir, can you tell about the pre-incubation? Yes, actually, let me, Jacob, are you going to give some light on the pre-incubation?
I can. So,
Yes.
so pre-incubation is kind of like a honeymoon period, right? So quite a lot of times what happens is, say, when an incubator or pre-incubation primarily only happens with an incubator. It generally does not tend to happen with an accelerator. So pre-incubation is primarily where an incubator is still evaluating your idea, or they're still evaluating your startup, and they're not exactly sure there is a mandate fit. So they believe that, okay, you are at a stage which is slightly early from the mandate of that incubator, and they would want to give you, say, something in the range of 3 to 6 months to see whether you are able to achieve the milestone, so that they can kind of like take you through incubation and then further for investment. So that is what, so that's why I call it as a honeymoon period. So pre-incubation is primarily a honeymoon period between an incubator and an enterprise or a startup, wherein both of them are trying to understand it between between themselves, and trying to ensure that there is a good mandate fit. Because again, an important aspect is, when you're looking at selecting an incubator, or when an incubator is looking at selecting a startup, it is important to understand the mandate fit, because otherwise there is no value that both of you can provide mutually. And this pre-incubation kind of like helps in creating that. An important aspect of pre-incubation is that you don't get all the services that you normally get when you are an incubator. So say, for example, I'll take the easiest example possible. So it's like taking an a la carte menu when you go to a restaurant vis-a-vis a buffet. So when you are taking an incubation, you get the entire buffet of services. But at the same time, for pre-incubation, you get an a la carte. You get to pick and choose the kind of service that you want from the start, from the incubator, and they kind of like try to provide to you. So that's the essence of pre-incubation, and not all incubators today in the country provide pre-incubation. So again, it is more of programmatic approach that incubators take, and it is more contextualized. So where they look at the startup that they are evaluating, and then they believe whether it is pre-incubation. So I am not aware that there is a structured pre-incubation program that is there in any of the incubators within the country. And like I mentioned, it is more of a contextualized decision that a lot of incubators take with regards to pre-incubation.
Yes, Jacob, actually, let me inform you also to the participants with an easy example, that these students, they started their idea, problem identification stage to the idea, and now they've developed the prototype, and now they have ready with the business plan for their innovation. In the last 7 to 8 months of journey, with handholding supports from their respective institutions, their innovation councils, and also from the Ministry of Education through multiple round of mentoring and training and evaluations, and now they have reached to this stage. So now they have the innovation and they have the business plan. So that the journey from problem identification to this stage is actually the pre-incubation, right? Because we are enabling you to develop a innovation, a product, maybe a prototype, and or a minimum viable product with a business plan. So now you have these two things in your hand, and now you can go to any incubation unit, you can pitch that, see, I have developed this, and this is my business model, and please give me the incubation support, and this is the what my growth plan. And you have to pitch in front of them. This is the what the stage you are now. It is now actually you are going through the pre-incubation phase, and what the funding support we are going to provide you, and what the things you are going to get in next 6 months. Actually, you are preparing yourself, getting into the getting into the incubation space, right? So this is the what in the easiest way to understand. And another question from one of the participants is that if an investor or an incubator and accelerator funds your company in terms of the equity, if things go something wrong and the company has to shut down, like and there is some debt you are having, so in that case, what is the going to happen? Because you have to pay the payback, and what are the owners' responsibility to the investor, incubator, and accelerator?
So generally, when you give out equity, so that's the transaction, right? So if the company shuts down, you don't need to pay back for the equity, as in you don't need to buy back the equity. So generally, we don't see that in any of the incubation agreements or the shareholder agreements that incubators, investors have with the startups. Because see, when an incubator is investing on you or investing in the company against equity, they are placing that trust in the company to succeed. It is not like you get penalized. Even if you don't succeed, it's not you don't get penalized. So the idea or the idea is that all of you will succeed. We don't need to think about a scenario where you're not going to succeed. And even if the company shuts down, say God forbid that happens, you don't need to pay back the incubator or the investor for the equity that they have acquired. Or say, for example, say tomorrow a company XYZ invests in a startup ABC for 50 lakhs and you give them 10% equity. 5 years down the line, if the company shuts back, you don't need to pay them back what is the worth of the 10% equity and give them money back. That's not the transaction. So that becomes a debt, right? That's a different structure altogether. That's a debt. Equity is not debt. Equity is wherein you are giving a part of your company. They are taking a stake in company. So they become your co-partners. Basically, that's why we say it is skin in the game. They are investing the skin in the game, and there is nothing that you need to pay back. But if there are debts, so if it is a debt or if it's a collateral-based loan that you have given, that's something that you have to pay back. And it becomes very important on how you structure your shareholder agreement, or it becomes very important on how you structure your investment note or investment agreement with all of these startups or the incubators to ensure that you get the maximum. So I would ideally suggest when you are entering into an agreement or when you are seeking investment from a company, always take the services of an expert who can guide you, because see, this is a tricky world, as in it's not easy. As in a single word can make a lot of difference in legal language. So it's always good to take understanding of an expert or build the expertise within yourselves to ensure that you get the best deal out of investment agreement that you sign with the company.
Yes. So actually, I just want to add few things here. So as Jacob said, that if it is a equity, that means you all are the partners and you have to take that risk, right? If you are going to close down this company, then everybody has to take that loss, and you have to share among with yourself. So there is nothing kind of a much problem, and everybody has to come together and you have to take a decision. Okay, let's close the company, and you can take the decision. But if it is a debt, that means you have taken some loan from somewhere, and there is that you have to pay back it. Then in that case, actually there is again, if it is a private limited, then there is a cap is there, right? There is a liability cap is there, and you have to pay up to that, right? And if it is proprietorship, then I think it is a risk will come huge, and even it may require that all of the partners you have to sell your own property to pay that one before you close. Neither you have to face that even in the court, right? So this is the what, based on the type of entity that you registered, it will depend on the kind of risk you are going to bear. So just assume if it is a private limited, then you, as per your share capital kind of things limit, you have to pay that much, and after that you have to declare yourself as a bankrupt, right? You have to go and file a bankrupt, and you have to declare that you are a bankrupt, and that means there is an end of your company. So this is the right way to close up the company, but actually nobody open the company to close a company, right? So everybody open a company either to grow or to sell to somebody so that they will think about start another company, right? So company, as per the account norms, company never die. Company is created to live for eternity and to generate more profit, more growth for the stakeholders and for the shareholders. This is the what the principle based on which we create the companies, right? So this is some concept, but you will learn as you will actually hands-on into this process, and you will learn so many things. But this is just beginning thing. You just remember. So any more
So
questions?
adding,
I think, yeah. Please, Jacob, you want
I
to add
just add
something?
on to what, yeah, I just add on to what Deepan mentioned. So it becomes very important to select the type of entity that you're establishing. So like Deepan mentioned, when you're establishing a private limited company, you are kind of like safeguarded by a lot of aspects. And you have to have a clear distinction between shutting down voluntarily and shutting down due to bankruptcy. So if you are voluntarily shutting down, then your liabilities change. So like Deepan mentioned, it could end up becoming like a private LLP. So if you're voluntarily shutting down a private limited company, you have to ensure that you pay back all your debts. But if it's a bankruptcy case, and it's entirely different scenario. So there are some legal recourses that you can take. You are protected by a lot of things, because again, it is the kind of protection that the government provides, because they also want to promote entrepreneurship. So it is not like you opened it and you shut it. You tried, but you were not able to succeed. And that's the kind of cushion that the government provides, or the various banking institutions provide, so that you can experiment and you can go out and chase your dreams.
Yes.
So
So the last question, the last question we will take that can you name few social incubators or accelerator programs in India and abroad?
So there are quite a few. So for example, we are a social, I would say we are also kind of like a social incubator. If you look at all the government run incubators, all of them are social incubators, because they have specific problem statements that are addressing either the social, economic, or the cultural aspect of the nation, and the development aspects of the nation, or the environmental aspects of the nation. So most of the incubators run by government institutes, research organizations, philanthropic organizations, they all tend to become social driven, social incubators. But an important aspect that you have to understand is, even when you call them as a social incubator, they try to support, most of them support for-profit enterprises. They don't work on an NGO model. So you have to have a clear distinction between what is an NGO and what is a for-profit enterprise. So even when you are approaching a social incubator, or the so-called social-based incubator, you have to have a for-profit model. So that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, right? So if you look at the entire Indian culture also, we have been trying to shift from NGO-based model to an entrepreneur-driven model. So just to give you an understanding of how that landscape has been happening. So the development sector in our country over the past 7 decades have been primarily been supported either by philanthropic or state capital. Now that needs to change. And that's what's happening over the past 10, 12 years. So organizations like us, the focus that the government has today, all of them is to use the power of entrepreneurship to address these development sector challenges. And that's where opportunities also open up for you, right? So rather than just being a B2B or a B2C company, you look at much more product, deep tech, science-based innovation. So especially if you look into the agri, healthcare space, environment space, energy space, opportunities are manifold. So consider the targets that we have. So by 2030, we want to have X number of electric vehicles on our road. So don't only think of it as electric vehicles. What about the associated infrastructure? You need to have battery systems. You need to have electric charging stations. You need to have better semiconductors. You need to have lighter batteries. You need to have more efficient wheels. You need to have lighter body frames. You need to have lighter chassis for the cars. So this is just one sector, and the opportunity that it holds is huge. So while we tag it as social entrepreneurs or social incubators, they are still for-profit companies or for-profit startups that actually go there. So if you ask for a specific list, the list is huge. So I would suggest just Google it. You'll get much more than what I can actually give out today. So I would suggest it's easier to just refer the web today for that list.
Yeah, as you rightly said, that social enterprise, that doesn't mean it's NGO, right? Now you should not only survive through the grants. Social enterprise means if you have something, the innovation, and that innovation is going to solve the development challenge of our country or the people, common people, either from the rural or the urban, that doesn't matter. If your solution is addressing the development challenge, there are SDG, right? There are sustainable development goals. So if you will think, if sustainable development goals list out the 17 problems, right, that generally required for improvising the livelihood and the health and wealthiness of the people, right? So if your problem, if your solution, or if your technology, or if your innovation is addressing any of these or multiple number of SDGs, sustainable development goals, then you can project yourself as you are a social enterprise. And
True.
That doesn't mean that you will only rely on the government and the grants to survive. That you should have develop a business model, a revenue stream, and also there is this kind of equitable approach to share the profit among all the stakeholders. Those are part of the business model. So this is what we call the social enterprise model, and that way you can discover the social enterprise concept or a component in your business model also. And that is also one of the best way of communication strategy and marketing strategy, and to reach out and to get the funds from the different sources. So generally B2C and B2G models, like business to consumer and business to government models, have this kind of components. In B2B you will not find any kind of social enterprise model, right? Because that deals only with the business to business, and business to business never comes from the social enterprise model. So these are some components you have to remember, and also you have to read more, as Jacob said, that you spend some time in the Google and to know more about if you just type the social incubator, you will get the list of all the things from India and abroad. One question I will only take the last. Yes, Jacob.
No, I just wanted to leave an interesting thought here. So see, the definition of social is something that is very subjective, right? So you look at any company, it is kind of like providing livelihoods for lakhs of people. That's social improvement, right? So that money is actually helping them buy something. They are able to improve their life standards. It is providing education for their children, or it is providing a shelter for their house. So it's a matter of perspective on how you look at social. So any company could be a social enterprise, but it's what the end objective that they stand for. Are they addressing multiple aspects, etc.?
Sir, can I quickly add a question? I just want to ask. So, Sir Jacob, sir, what do you think about convertible notes? Is it a good way for founders to raise equity in early stages? Because sometimes if you're not really good at getting the right pricing round, it may also backfire. So what do you say, as we are early stage entrepreneurs, should we go for a convertible note or not? Very candidly, honestly asking, as students, we are moving into it. So what would you say?
Got it. So Akshat, I'll give you my limited understanding on this. So a lot of times incubators prefer convertible loans because that's kind of like ring fencing their investment, right? So an early stage investor, they want to give you a convertible note because they want to protect their investment when the next round is coming in. So they will say that, okay, we will convert when your next round is coming in. But of late, what we have seen is this tends to move towards CCPA. So it becomes easier for you to raise money with convertible notes. And if you have confidence in your product, and if you believe that, yes, we are committed to this on the longer run, I would say convertible note is still an okay aspect, and you can still go ahead and provide convertible notes. But again, it is subjective. You have to ensure that you are bought onto the idea. The terms that are being offered on convertible notes are something favorable to you. And there is a mutual understanding between your investor and the startup to ensure that these convertible notes are not converted in the sense of an adversity. So someone shouldn't come up with unfavorable terms. So it shouldn't be like, okay, we are giving you a convertible note, in 6 months you have to raise another investment, and we have to get our investment back. That sort of note shouldn't be there. So it has to be structured in such a way that it is there is a middle ground that both of you can take, and there is value for both of you to have those kind of convertible notes. So a lot of people tend to move towards CCPS. So we do CCPS thesis. So we do compulsory convertible preferential shares, because that comes from the founders CTA, right? Since that comes from the founders preferential shares, it kind of like protects the other investors on the table. And when you have convertible notes, the other investors become a bit jittery. They kind of like, okay, there is someone that we have to pay back because it is already there. So again, it is subjective. You will have to ensure that you have the right terms when you're agreeing on this, and on the basis that take the call.
Okay. So the last question is that does incubator also demands a prototype, and also kindly tell that do they provide a handholding supports to our prototype from scratch to a proper product? If you will ask this question, I think 5 years back answer is yes, but today answer is no, because 5 or 6 years back India had no pre-incubation system, and when the incubation they started, they never get the good pipeline of the startups. That's why they just get into the foot of the pre-incubation, and they started promoting innovation. They started helping at the ideation level. But at this stage, incubations, they never spend money, and they never waste their time on at the idea level. They generally say that if you have the business model, if you have the even business model is not ready, even if you have the prototype and there is some intellectual property component, or if you have something to demonstrate and some market potential is there, then you come and approach. because their money, actually government or whoever funding the incubation units, they always ask for every penny that you invest, either it's a grant or whatever, then they are liable to answer to the funder. Maybe it's maybe government or it may be a CSR fund. So incubation units are also now, they are quite, they have stringent their process and they never handhold at the idea level. So if you want to apply for incubation unit, you should have worked out before with support from the pre-incubation support from your institute or with the on your own, and you have to design the prototype at least which is demonstrable and which can be proved that that's your commitment, your passion, and your involvement. And also, if you will develop any business model to take that innovations to the market, then they will be happy to interact with you and also offer to the support for the refinement of that prototype to a marketable product. So that support they can provide, but not at the very beginning stage of your idea level. Maybe few new incubation units, they may offer the support, but actually in general incubation units, they only entertain when you have the prototype ready and the at least TRL stage 3 or 4. So if your prototype is technology readiness level 3 or 4 and a business model, even if that is a draft level, that's also fine. At this stage, only incubation units will entertain your application. Jacob will.
I'll just add. Yeah,
yep.
I just add to what Deepan just mentioned. So, see, if you look at it, the government has structured this really well, right? So the various schemes that they have today. So right from the tinkering labs in schools to the incubation centers within colleges, the AICs within colleges to the DST approved incubators run by host institutions. This kind of like creates a really good pathway. So the system has evolved in such a way, like how Deepan mentioned today, that by the time you reach the incubator, you would have a prototype already ready. So you would have already worked with someone, you would have worked with your labs, or you would have worked in your respective institutes, innovation cells, entrepreneurship cells. You would have had a fair bit of understanding of what the product you have, and it would be more of how to tackle the GTM or how to tackle the go-to-market or the lab-to-market journey. So in that way, the ecosystem is attuned a bit wherein it provides you various levels of support. So you have your research institutes for your innovation stage, and then you move to your incubation, and then you move to your investment. So there is a good structure that is available within our country or within the ecosystem. It is important that we utilize the structure and then go through the structure. Otherwise, what happens is you are trying to short circuit the entire system, and then it will not help you.
Yes. So I think, do you have another 1 or 2 minutes to take the question, Jacob?
Sure.
So one question is how important is IP when you approach for grants specifically in SaaS technology startup?
Okay, so there are two important aspects of this SaaS technology IPs. Now that's very interesting, because the SaaS is something that is easily replicable. And when you say you have an IP and you're reaching out to grant for a SaaS-based technology, the IP definitely holds value, right? So be it grant, be it equity or whatever, there is definitely a value, because that kind of like tells you this is a validated model. There is something that is sellable. So from that point of view, IP is definitely important. But is that the only thing? No, I would say no, because see, for a SaaS technology startup, what is important is how soon can you increase adoption of your product, or how can you increase adoption of your product within the shortest span of time and ensure there is maximum traction for your product. So from that point of view, for grant, is it important? Yes, to an extent. But will that become the only criteria, or will that become a disqualifying criteria for you? I don't think so.
Okay. So then I think now it's time to close. And I'm actually really happy that Jacob has covered all the aspects and the points, and many of they also cleared the queries of our questions from the students. And I think this session actually is going to help us in better way. And with this, I will again thank to Jacob for this session, and I will communicate to you all that today afternoon session is again going to very important. It is going to cover the investment. It is going to cover the angel and the VC investment opportunity for the startups. And if you will know these steps better, then I think you will prepare in advance. That's why we are trying to cover each and every aspect of the early stage of the startup. And in the last 2.5 days, you've gone through so many sessions, and all these sessions will be available on Monday or Tuesday in your login page. So don't waste your time. Spend, watch, and again rewatch all these sessions so that you will understand the concept. Maybe you are not able. We will continue our supports and all kind of handholding facilities with you all. And already Jacob has said his email, and he's also running. He's the director, incubation director at Social Alpha. So they have many incubation units in different parts of the country. He is based out of Bangalore, but there are Social Alpha is the incubation units in Delhi and other cities. So you can write your queries to Jacob if you have any specific query, and if you are having kind of social enterprise and you are to get incubated, and after 1 to 2 months, when you will have complete your just rework on your business model based on the inputs you received in the last 2.5 days, and again after reworking on business model and in your innovation, you can write to him to explore any opportunity of incubation support. If you are if you are having any kind of social enterprise component or the social innovation component, and for other queries also you can reach to him. But this is the kind of this is what we call the networking and connection, right? So actually networking and connection also gives you a lead that actually to move from one to another location, one to another opportunity. So we have to use all these kind of sessions also for generating the networking and the leads for collaboration or kind of a cooperation. So in this way, I think we have to grow, and this is I think best alternative with us. And with this, I thank all and my best wishes to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepan. It was a pleasure to have you and spoken to all of you. So, like Deepan mentioned, please feel free to write to me for anything. Not only incubation, if there is anything that we can help you out with, feel free to happy to write to us.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, Dipan sir. Thank you, Jacob sir, for delivering such a wonderful session. We are very grateful for your time and knowledge. So our next 2 sessions will start at 4 p.m. today. All the participants are requested to join there. Thank you. Thank you so much.